Sarah felt her unborn child go still as the Apache warrior lifted her half-frozen body from the killing snow. By carrying her to his tribe's sacred lands, Standing Bear violated their most ancient law and ignited a fury that would force them both to choose between honor and survival. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. The wind howled across the plains like a wounded animal, driving ice and snow before it in violent, twisting clouds. The sky hung heavy and grey, merging with the white landscape until horizon and earth became one endless void. In this brutal emptiness, Standing Bear moved with practiced silence, his body angled against the storm's fury. Despite the layers of rabbit fur and deerskin that protected him, the cold bit through to his bones. His breath formed crystals in his beard, and his eyes, dark as wet stone, narrowed against the relentless assault of the blizzard. Standing Bear had not planned to be caught in the open during this storm. He had tracked 3 horses that had broken free from their winter corral, valuable animals that his people couldn't afford to lose. But what had begun as light snowfall that morning had transformed into a blinding maelstrom by midday. Now, as the dim light faded toward evening, he knew he faced a decision: continue searching or turn back toward the winter camp nestled in the sacred valley that had sheltered his people for generations. The Apache scout paused, listening beyond the wind's wail for any sound that might guide him. 32 winters had taught him respect for the snow's killing power. Men died in storms like this, even experienced warriors like himself. His father, Chief Running Wolf, would understand if he returned without the horses. The animals were likely huddled somewhere, instinctively seeking shelter. They could be found once the storm passed. Standing Bear turned south toward home, when a sound cut through the howling wind, faint but unmistakable, a human voice. He froze, hand dropping to the knife at his belt. The sound came again, weaker now, more a whimper than a cry. Standing Bear hesitated only briefly before moving toward it, his moccasins finding purchase in the deep snow with practiced ease. The form he discovered, half buried in a snowdrift beside a fallen cottonwood, was so still, he first thought death had already claimed it. But as he knelt, brushing away the snow that had begun to cover the huddled shape, he saw the shallow rise and fall of breathing. A woman, a white woman. Her face was nearly as pale as the snow around her, lips tinged blue, eyelashes frosted white. Dark hair spilled from beneath a woolen bonnet, and her hands, gloveless and red with cold, clutched desperately at a worn blanket wrapped around her body. Standing Bear's jaw tightened. The nearest white settlement was 2 days' ride in good weather. What was she doing out here, alone, in such a storm? As he reached to check for a pulse at her throat, her eyes fluttered open, pale blue, like the summer sky his people wouldn't see again for months. Fear flickered in those eyes when they focused on his face, then faded into a dull resignation. She was too weak even for terror. Help! The word escaped her lips as little more than a breath. Standing Bear saw it then as the blanket shifted, the rounded swell of her belly beneath the threadbare coat. The woman was with child. He muttered a quiet prayer to the spirits. This complicated everything. Taking her back to the sacred valley would anger many, especially his father. The elders had declared their winter grounds forbidden to outsiders after soldiers had desecrated burial sites the previous spring. The peace between his people and the white settlers was fragile at best, non-existent at worst. But leaving her meant death for both mother and unborn child. "I will help you," he said in careful English, words he had learned during his years as a scout for the army before returning to his people. The woman's eyes widened slightly, perhaps surprised to hear her own language. She tried to speak again, but only a soft moan escaped before her eyes rolled back and she lost consciousness. Standing, Bear made his decision. Slipping his arms beneath her, he lifted her from the snow, surprised by how light she felt despite her condition. Her head lolled against his chest, and he adjusted the blanket to cover her face from the cutting wind. The journey back would be difficult, dangerous even with his knowledge of the land, and what awaited at the camp might prove more perilous still. His father's anger would be formidable, the council's judgment harsh. They might see his action as betrayal, bringing an outsider to their sacred winter grounds, risking exposure of their location to other whites. But as Standing Bear felt the faint double heartbeat against his chest, the woman's and her unborn child's, he knew he could make no other choice. Night was falling quickly now, the temperature dropping with the sun. Standing Bear oriented himself by instinct more than sight, the landmarks he knew hidden beneath snow and darkness. His people's camp lay in a protected valley 3 miles south, a sacred place where generations of Apache had sheltered through the harshest winters, where ancient ones were buried, where ceremonies were performed away from white eyes. And now, for the first time, he would bring a white woman into that sanctuary. "What, hold on," he murmured, though he doubted she could hear him. "Hold on." With that, Standing Bear began the long walk home through the howling heart of the blizzard, carrying a burden far heavier than the slight woman in his arms. The sacred valley appeared through the swirling snow like a ghost. First the dark outlines of the towering cliff walls that sheltered it from northern winds. Then the scattered glow of cook fires, dim orange stars against the whiteness. Standing Bear's muscles burned with exertion, his lungs raw from the freezing air, but he did not slow his pace. The woman in his arms had grown dangerously still during the journey, her breathing shallow and irregular. As he descended the narrow path into the valley, the first alarm call rang out, a low whistle, followed by movement among the lodges. Within moments, shadowy figures emerged, some carrying torches that hissed and sputtered in the snow. "Standing Bear returns," called a voice, relief evident in the words. But the relief turned quickly to murmurs of confusion as the light fell upon the bundle in his arms. Standing Bear strode forward, his face set in lines of determination. He ignored the growing crowd, heading directly toward the largest lodge at the center of the encampment, his father's dwelling. Before he reached it, the hide covering was pushed aside, and Chief Running Wolf emerged. Though 60 winters had left their mark in the deep lines of his face and the silver streaking his long braids, Running Wolf stood straight and powerful, his gaze as sharp as his namesake's. That gaze now fixed on his son, then dropped to the unconscious woman. "What have you done?" The chief's voice was low, controlled, but Standing Bear heard the dangerous edge beneath. "And she would have died in the storm," he answered simply, meeting his father's eyes without flinching. "She carries a child." The crowd had gathered closer now, their faces reflecting confusion, anger, fear. Standing Bear recognized them all, people he had known since birth, hunted with, celebrated with, mourned with. Now they looked at him as if he were a stranger. "Did you bring a white woman to our sacred grounds?" This from Grey Hawk, one of the elders, his voice cracking with age and outrage. "After what they did to our burial sites, after their soldiers killed 4 of our young men last spring." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the gathering. Standing Bear felt the weight of their disapproval, but he held his ground. "I bring a mother and her unborn child," he corrected. "Ogre the Storm does not care what color her skin is. Death comes to all in the blizzard, and death may come to us all for your foolishness," spat Broken Knife, a warrior who had lost his brother to white settlers. "Bullets. She will bring others. They always do. The woman stirred in Standing Bear's arms, a soft moan escaping her blue-tinged lips. Her condition was deteriorating. This debate was wasting precious time. "Father," Standing Bear addressed Running Wolf directly, "I have made my choice. Judge me as you will, but first let me take her to Morning Dove. The woman needs help now, or two spirits will walk the snowpath tonight." Running Wolf's expression remained impassive, but his eyes, so like his son's, revealed the conflict within. He was chief. He had declared the valley forbidden to outsiders. But he was also a man who had lived by a warrior's honor all his life. After what seemed an eternity, he stepped aside from the lodge entrance. "Take her to Morning Dove," he said, his voice carrying clearly to all gathered. "We will not let a woman and unborn child die on this night." He raised his voice to address the crowd. "But at first light, the council will meet. We will decide then what is to be done." Standing Bear inclined his head in acknowledgement, then moved past his father into the warmth of the lodge. Inside, the fire burned bright in the central pit, filling the space with flickering light and the scent of pine. An older woman looked up from where she sat, grinding herbs with a stone mortar. Morning Dove, his father's sister, the tribe's most respected healer. Her eyes widened at the sight of the pale woman in his arms, but unlike the others, she asked no questions, simply pointing to a pile of furs near the fire. "Lay her there," she instructed, already reaching for her medicine pouch. "Tell me what happened." Standing Bear gently placed the woman on the furs, unwrapping the snow-crusted blanket. In the firelight, her face appeared even more delicate, almost translucent, dark lashes stark against her white cheeks. The swell of her pregnancy was more pronounced now, perhaps 7 or 8 moons along. "I found her in the snow," he explained, helping Morning Dove remove the woman's frozen outer garments. She was conscious only briefly. She said nothing about who she is or how she came to be there. Morning Dove's practiced hands moved efficiently, checking the woman's pulse, feeling her forehead, examining her limbs for frostbite. "She has the cold sickness," the healer pronounced grimly, "and the child moves restlessly. We must warm her slowly and get medicine into her." She looked up at Standing Bear, her weathered face serious. "But you have brought trouble to us, nephew. I know. But you have also done what a warrior should," she added more softly. "You have protected those who cannot protect themselves." Outside, Standing Bear could hear the continuing murmurs of the tribe, the rising voices of debate. His father would be working to calm them, to maintain order until the council could meet. But Standing Bear knew the danger was real, not just to the white woman, but to the fragile peace his people had managed to maintain. Morning Dove's voice broke into his thoughts. "She wakes." The woman's eyelids fluttered, then opened fully, revealing eyes the color of a clear winter sky. For a moment, they remained unfocused, then widened with sudden fear as she registered the unfamiliar surroundings, the hide walls of the lodge, the smoke curling toward the opening above, the strange faces watching her. She tried to sit up, a small cry escaping her lips, one hand instinctively moving to protect her swollen belly. "Be still," Standing Bear said in English, kneeling beside her. "Or you are safe." She stared at him, recognition dawning slowly. "You found me." Her voice was a dry whisper, cracked from cold and thirst. Morning Dove pressed a wooden cup into Standing Bear's hands. "Have her drink this, slowly." He nodded, then held the cup to the woman's lips. "Drink. It will help." She hesitated, eyeing the dark liquid suspiciously. "And if I wanted you dead," Standing Bear said quietly, "I would have left you in the snow." Something flickered in her eyes. Acknowledgement, perhaps, or resignation. She sipped cautiously at first, then more eagerly as thirst overcame caution. The medicine was bitter, made from willow bark and herbs, mourning dove gathered in summer and dried for winter healing, but the woman didn't complain. When she finished, Standing Bear set the cup aside. "What is your name?" She swallowed, her gaze darting between him and Mourning Dove. Sarah Winters." "How did you come to be alone in the blizzard, Sarah Winters?" He kept his tone neutral, though the question was anything but. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. When she opened them again, they glistened with unshed tears. "My husband, James. We were traveling to Fort Sullivan. Our wagon broke an axle 3 days back. James went for help, but..." Her voice faltered. "Bandits found our camp instead. They took everything, shot James when he returned and caught them looting." A tear slipped down her pale cheek. "I ran, just ran. Then the snow came." Standing Bear translated for Mourning Dove, who listened with a face of stone, only her eyes reflecting sympathy. "Fort Sullivan is 4 days' ride south," Standing Bear said, frowning. "You are far off course." "I know." Sarah's hand clutched at the furs covering her. "I became lost, disoriented in the storm. I thought I saw smoke, houses, but there was nothing, just snow. So much snow." Her voice trailed off, exhaustion claiming her again. Mourning Dove touched Standing Bear's arm. "She needs rest now. The medicine will help with the cold sickness, but her body must fight too." She looked at Sarah with experienced eyes. "And the child, it is close to its time, perhaps within a moon." Standing Bear nodded grimly. The situation was worse than he'd thought. Even if the council decided to send Sarah away, she couldn't travel, not in her condition, not in this weather. They were committed now, for better or worse. Outside the lodge, the sounds of the camp had subsided somewhat, though Standing Bear could still hear low voices in discussion. His father would be meeting with the elders already, preparing for the formal council at dawn. Standing Bear knew he should join them, explain his actions more fully, but he found himself reluctant to leave the white woman's side. "I will stay with her," Mourning Dove said, as if reading his thoughts. "Go. Speak with your father. There is much to be decided." With a last glance at Sarah, who had fallen into an uneasy sleep, Standing Bear ducked through the lodge entrance into the night. The storm had eased somewhat, though snow still fell steadily, accumulating on the roofs of the lodges and blanketing the ground in pristine white. Several fires burned throughout the camp, figures huddled around them despite the late hour. He found his father in the council lodge with 5 of the eldest tribal members. Their conversation ceased as he entered, all eyes turning to him with expressions ranging from disappointment to outright hostility. "My son," Running Wolf said, his voice carrying the weight of his position, "you have brought a difficult choice upon us." "There was no choice, father," Standing Bear replied, taking his place in the circle. "Not for a warrior with honor," Greyhawk snorted. "Honor? You speak of honor when you bring one of them to our sacred place, after all they have done." "She is not them," Standing Bear countered. "She is one woman with child, whose husband was killed by bandits who could be white, Mexican, or even renegade Apache for all we know." "And how do you know she speaks truth?" This from Stone Calf, a respected elder whose caution had saved the tribe more than once. White tongues often lie. Standing Bear met the old man's gaze steadily. "I believe her." "Because you want to," Broken Knife said coldly. "You have always been too trusting of the white eyes, too willing to walk in their world." The accusation stung, but Standing Bear kept his expression neutral. His years as a scout for the army had indeed separated him from the tribe, taught him the ways of white men, their language, their customs, their strengths and weaknesses. But he had returned to his people when they needed him most, when the reservation system threatened to destroy their way of life. "I walk in our world," he said firmly. "And in our world, we do not leave the helpless to die." Running Wolf raised a hand, silencing further argument. "What's done is done. The woman is here. The question now is what we do with her." "We cannot send her out in this weather," Standing Bear argued. And according to Morning Dove, her time is near. The child could come within a moon." A murmur ran through the elders. Birth was sacred, even the birth of a white child. "Then she stays until the child comes," Running Wolf decided. "After that, when she can travel, you will take her to the fort." He fixed Standing Bear with a penetrating stare. "And you alone will be responsible for her. If she brings trouble to our people, it falls on your shoulders." Standing Bear inclined his head, accepting the burden. "I understand." "See that you do," his father replied. "Now go. The council will discuss how this news should be shared with the rest of the tribe." Outside, the snow had finally stopped, leaving the world hushed and clean beneath a clearing sky. Stars pierced the darkness overhead, cold and distant. Standing Bear paused, letting the night air clear his head. He had known the consequences when he picked Sarah up from that snowdrift. Known, but perhaps not fully understood how complicated things would become. Returning to his father's lodge, he found Morning Dove still awake, mixing another medicine by the fire. Sarah slept more peacefully now. Some color returned to her cheeks. "The fever breaks," Morning Dove said quietly. "She is stronger than she looks, this white woman." Standing Bear nodded, settling himself on the far side of the fire. He would need that strength in the days to come. They all would. Dawn broke clear and cold, the sun casting long blue shadows across the snow-laden valley. Sarah awakened to unfamiliar sounds, quiet voices speaking a language she didn't understand. The crackle of fire, the distant whinnying of horses. For a moment, disorientation gripped her, then memory flooded back. The blizzard, the Apache warrior who had carried her through the snow, the old woman with gentle hands and stern eyes. She was alive. The child within her stirred, as if confirming the thought, and Sarah placed a protective hand over her belly. "We're alive," she whispered. "Yes, you are." The voice came from nearby, startling her. Sarah turned to see the warrior who had rescued her sitting cross-legged beside the fire, watching her with those intense, dark eyes. "How do you feel?" Sarah assessed herself honestly. Her body ached. Her fingers and toes tingled painfully as circulation returned, and exhaustion weighed on her like a heavy blanket. But the desperate cold that had been devouring her from inside was gone. "Better," she said, pushing herself up on one elbow. "No, thank you for saving us." He nodded once, accepting her gratitude without comment. In the clear light of morning, Sarah could see him properly for the first time. He was not what she had expected. The Apache men she had glimpsed from the safety of wagons or settlements had seemed wild, threatening figures. This man had an air of quiet dignity, a steadiness that spoke of inner strength rather than savagery. "I'm Standing Bear," he said, breaking into her thoughts. "Standing Bear," she repeated carefully, "and the woman who helped me?" "Morning Dove, my father's sister, a healer." He gestured to the empty space beside the fire. "She has gone to gather more medicine." Sarah nodded, then looked around the lodge curiously. It was larger than she had imagined, the hide walls decorated with painted symbols she didn't understand. Various possessions hung from the supporting poles, bundles of herbs, tools, clothing, weapons. A bedroll lay on the far side, and cooking implements were arranged neatly near the fire pit. "This is your home?" she asked. "My father's," Standing Bear corrected, "Chief Running Wolf." The significance of this wasn't lost on Sarah. She had been brought into the chief's own dwelling. The implications of such an action, bringing a white woman into the leader's home, into what was clearly a sacred area for the tribe, suddenly weighed on her. "I've caused trouble for you," she said, meeting his gaze directly. Standing Bear held her gaze for a long moment before answering, "Yes." The simple honesty of the reply startled a small laugh from her, though there was little humor in it. "At least you don't lie to spare my feelings. Would lies help?" he asked, a hint of wry humor in his own voice. "No," Sarah admitted. "I suppose not." She shifted, wincing as her body protested. "What will happen now?" Before Standing Bear could answer, the lodge entrance opened and Mourning Dove entered, carrying a small bundle of what appeared to be roots. She nodded to Sarah, spoke briefly to Standing Bear in their language, then set about preparing something at the fire. "The council has decided," Standing Bear explained, switching back to English. "You will stay until your child is born and you are strong enough to travel. Then I will take you to Fort Sullivan." Relief washed through Sarah, followed quickly by a new concern. But that could be weeks. "My time is close," she hesitated, then asked the question that had been troubling her since she awoke. "Why would your people agree to this? From what little I know, the Apache have no love for whites." "We have little reason to," Standing Bear acknowledged, his expression hardening slightly. "But we do not make war on women and children. And birth is sacred, even among enemies." Sarah absorbed this, watching as Mourning Dove crushed the roots she had gathered into a fine powder, which she then added to a pot of water heating over the fire. The old woman's movements were sure and practiced, her weathered face set in lines of concentration. "I'm not your enemy," Sarah said softly, turning back to Standing Bear. Something flickered in his eyes, not quite belief, but not outright rejection either. "Perhaps not," he conceded, "but there is history between our peoples that cannot be forgotten in a day." Before Sarah could respond, the lodge entrance opened again, admitting a blast of cold air and a young boy of perhaps 9 or 10 years. He stopped short when he saw Sarah, eyes widening with curiosity and a touch of fear. He spoke rapidly to Standing Bear, who replied calmly, gesturing for the boy to approach. "This is Swift Fox, my brother's son," Standing Bear explained to Sarah. "He has never seen a white woman before." The boy edged closer, studying Sarah with undisguised fascination. Sarah offered him a small smile, and after a moment's hesitation, Swift Fox smiled back, revealing a missing front tooth. Mourning Dove said something that made the boy laugh, then handed him a small pouch. He took it with a respectful nod and darted back outside, casting one more curious glance at Sarah before disappearing. "She told him you were too skinny to eat, so he should take this medicine to his mother instead," Standing Bear translated, a hint of amusement in his voice. Despite everything, Sarah found herself smiling. "Please tell her I'm grateful not to be on the menu." When Standing Bear relayed this, Mourning Dove's stern face relaxed into what might have been a smile of her own. She brought a bowl of the liquid she had been preparing and handed it to Sarah, miming that she should drink. The concoction was bitter but not unpleasant, tasting of earth and green things. Sarah drank it all under Mourning Dove's watchful eye, then returned the empty bowl with a nod of thanks. "It will give you strength," Standing Bear explained, "and help the child grow strong for its journey." Sarah placed a hand on her belly, feeling the familiar movements within. "Thank you." She looked between Standing Bear and Mourning Dove, trying to convey the depth of her gratitude. "And for everything," Mourning Dove spoke, and Standing Bear translated, "She says you should rest now. Later, when you are stronger, you can help with the women's work. Idleness is not good for a mother waiting for her child." The idea of helping with women's work, whatever that might entail in an Apache camp, was both intimidating and oddly comforting. It suggested she wouldn't be treated as a prisoner, at least. "Duh, I would like that," Sarah said sincerely. "I want to earn my keep, such as it is." Standing Bear regarded her thoughtfully, as if reassessing his judgment of her. Few white women would say such a thing. "I'm not most white women," Sarah replied quietly, "and I've learned that pride is a poor substitute for survival." Something shifted in Standing Bear's expression then, not quite approval, but a recognition of sorts. He nodded once, then rose fluidly to his feet. "I must hunt today," he said. "The storm kept many inside, and meat is needed." He paused, looking down at her with those unreadable dark eyes. "Rest, heal. You are safe here." With that, he ducked through the lodge entrance and was gone, leaving Sarah with Mourning Dove and a strange sense that despite all logic, she believed him. Here, in this Apache camp, where she should have felt most threatened, she felt safer than she had in months. Outside, the sounds of the camp grew louder as more people emerged to begin their day. Sarah closed her eyes, the medicine already making her drowsy again. Tomorrow, she would face whatever this new reality held. For now, she would rest and be grateful for the unlikely mercy that had saved her and her unborn child from the killing snow. Days passed, melting into a week, then two. The rhythm of life in the Apache camp gradually became familiar to Sarah. Each morning, she would wake before dawn to help Mourning Dove prepare the day's first meal. The old woman spoke little English, just a few words picked up from traders and her nephew, but she proved a patient teacher, showing rather than telling, guiding Sarah's hands when she struggled with unfamiliar tasks. Sarah learned to grind corn with stone tools, to mix the meal with water and shape it into flat cakes that cooked quickly on hot stones. She learned to prepare rabbit and venison in the Apache way, to identify which roots and dried berries were safe to eat, and which were used for medicine. The work was hard, especially in her condition, but Sarah welcomed it. Physical labor kept her mind from dwelling too much on all she had lost, or on the uncertain future that awaited her and her child. The women of the tribe regarded her with mixed reactions. Some, like Singing Brook, a young mother with a baby strapped to her back, showed cautious friendliness, helping Sarah learn to weave simple baskets from reeds gathered along the frozen stream. Others maintained a cold distance, speaking sharply in their language when she came near, turning their backs when she tried to help. Standing Bear explained little of this to her, though he served as interpreter when necessary. He spent much of his time hunting or in council with the other men, but he checked on her progress regularly, his dark eyes assessing her with an unreadable expression. Sometimes, in the evenings, he would sit across the fire from her in his father's lodge, silent yet watchful, as if trying to solve a puzzle. Chief Running Wolf remained a distant figure, treating Sarah with formal courtesy but clear reservation. He never spoke directly to her, addressing questions or comments to Standing Bear even when she was present. Yet she often caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking, his weathered face contemplative. On the 15th day, everything changed. Sarah was helping Singing Brook gather wood at the edge of the camp when the first pain struck, a tight, twisting sensation that made her gasp and drop the branches she'd collected. Singing Brook was at her side instantly, her young face concerned. "Baby?" she asked in halting English. Sarah shook her head, forcing a smile. No, just tired. But even as she spoke, she knew something wasn't right. It was too early, at least 2 weeks before her time, by her reckoning. Singing Brook didn't look convinced, but she nodded, helping Sarah gather the scattered wood. Together they returned to camp, Sarah moving more slowly than usual, trying to ignore the dull ache that had settled in her lower back. By midday, she could no longer pretend. The pains were coming regularly now, sharpening with each occurrence. She was in the chief's lodge, grinding corn under Morning Dove's direction, when a particularly strong contraction doubled her over, a small cry escaping her lips. Morning Dove was beside her in an instant, her gnarled hands steady as they guided Sarah to a sitting position. The old woman's eyes were knowing as she placed a palm on Sarah's distended belly, feeling the muscles contract beneath her touch. She said something in Apache, her tone urgent. "What's happening?" Sarah gasped, though she already knew. Morning Dove didn't answer, moving instead to the lodge entrance where she called out sharply. Within moments, Singing Brook appeared, listened to Morning Dove's rapid instructions, then disappeared again, presumably to fetch help. "The baby," Sarah whispered, fear gripping her heart. "It's too soon." Morning Dove seemed to understand. She shook her head, making rocking motions with her arms and speaking soothingly. "Not too soon," her gestures seemed to say. "The child comes when it chooses." The next few hours passed in a blur of pain and strange sensations for Sarah. Women arrived, bringing water, clean hides, herbs, and other items she couldn't identify. They worked with quiet efficiency, transforming a corner of the lodge into a birthing space, hanging special charms from the support poles and burning sweetgrass in a small clay bowl. Standing Bear appeared briefly at the entrance, his expression alarmed when he saw Sarah lying on a bed of furs, face contorted in pain. Morning Dove shooed him away with sharp words, and the last thing Sarah saw before another contraction claimed her attention was his retreating back. The labor was long and difficult. Sarah had helped with birthing before, her sister's children, neighbors' babies back in Ohio, but experiencing it herself was entirely different. The pain was beyond anything she could have imagined, a force of nature that consumed her utterly. She lost track of time, aware only of the women's steady presence, of Morning Dove's firm hands guiding her, of the encouraging murmurs in a language she couldn't understand but somehow drew strength from. As the day waned and shadows lengthened within the lodge, Sarah felt herself weakening. The pains came faster now, more intense, but she had no strength left to push. A fog seemed to descend over her mind, and with it came whispers of surrender. It would be so easy to let go, to slip away from the pain, to join James in whatever lay beyond. "No!" The voice was firm, masculine, unexpected in this female space. "And Sarah Winters, you will fight." Sarah forced her eyes open to see Standing Bear kneeling beside her, defying tradition to enter the birthing area. The women had fallen silent, even Morning Dove watching with wide eyes as the warrior took Sarah's hand in his. "You survived the blizzard," he said, his voice low and intense. "You survived bandits and loss and the journey here. You will survive this birth." His grip tightened. "Your child needs you. Fight!" Something stirred in Sarah, a spark of the same determination that had kept her moving through the snow when all seemed lost. She held Standing Bear's gaze, drawing from his strength, then nodded once. "Tell me what to do," she whispered. He spoke rapidly to Morning Dove, who seemed to recover from her shock and moved back to Sarah's side. The old woman positioned her hands on Sarah's belly, speaking instructions that Standing Bear translated. "When the next pain comes, push with all your strength. Do not stop until she tells you." Sarah nodded, gathering her remaining energy. When the contraction began, she bore down with everything she had, a primal scream tearing from her throat. Mourning Dove's voice rose in what sounded like a chant, the other women joining in, their voices blending into a powerful chorus that seemed to fill the lodge and flow through Sarah, lending her strength she didn't know she possessed. Again, Standing Bear urged when the pain ebbed and returned. "Push!" Sarah pushed, feeling something shift, a pressure so intense she thought she might split in two. Then suddenly, release, and the thin, outraged cry of a newborn. Mourning Dove moved quickly, lifting something small and bloody, cutting the cord with a swift motion, wrapping the infant in a soft hide. The old woman's face broke into a rare smile as she placed the bundle in Sarah's trembling arms. "A son," Standing Bear said, his voice oddly thick. "Do you have a son, Sarah Winters?" Sarah looked down at the tiny red face, the shock of dark hair, the perfect miniature fingers that curled reflexively around her thumb when she touched his palm. Tears streamed down her face, tears of joy, of relief, of grief that James would never see his child. "Hello, little one," she whispered. Welcome to the world." She was vaguely aware of Mourning Dove tending to the afterbirth, of the other women cleaning up, of Standing Bear watching with an expression of wonder. But mostly, she was aware of the miraculous weight in her arms, the new life she had somehow brought into this world against all odds. Outside the lodge, a drum began to beat, a slow, steady rhythm that was soon joined by others. Standing Bear listened, then turned to Sarah with a look of surprise. "They celebrate the birth," he explained. "My father has called for it." Sarah looked up at him, confused. "But why? I'm not one of your people." Standing Bear's eyes held hers for a long moment. "Any child born in our sacred valley is blessed by the spirits. Even yours." He hesitated, then added more softly, "Perhaps especially yours." The significance of this wasn't lost on Sarah. It was an acknowledgement, however small, that something had changed, that she and her son were no longer simply outsiders to be tolerated until they could be sent away. As if confirming her thoughts, Mourning Dove approached, making shooing motions at Standing Bear. He rose with a faint smile, ducking out of the lodge to join the celebration outside. The old woman then sat beside Sarah, gently adjusting the way she held the baby to better support his head. "Thank you," Sarah said simply, knowing the words were inadequate for all this woman had done. Mourning Dove nodded, then placed a weathered hand on the baby's head. "Strong," she said in heavily accented English, one of the few words Sarah had heard her speak. "Like mother." Sarah looked down at her son, feeling a fierce love that transcended exhaustion, pain, and uncertainty. Whatever the future held, she would face it for him. She would be strong. Outside, the drums continued their steady rhythm, welcoming her child to a world far different from the one she had imagined for him. A world where an Apache warrior had defied his people to save them both, where ancient traditions honored his birth, and where, against all odds, they had found a place, however temporary, to belong. The days following the birth passed in a haze for Sarah. Her body needed healing, and the demands of a newborn left little time for anything else. The women of the tribe, surprisingly, rallied around her. Even those who had been coldest now brought small gifts: a tiny pair of soft leather moccasins, a woven blanket dyed with natural pigments, a rattle made from a tortoise shell. Birth transcended boundaries, it seemed, creating a temporary bridge between worlds normally separated by suspicion and history. On the fourth day, when Sarah was strong enough to sit up for longer periods, Chief Running Wolf himself came to visit. The lodge fell silent as he entered, his tall figure blocking the light from the doorway momentarily. Mourning Dove bowed her head in respect, then quietly left, giving them privacy. Sarah instinctively clutched her sleeping son closer, uncertain what to expect. The chief's weathered face revealed nothing as he approached, looking down at the infant with inscrutable dark eyes. "My son tells me you have not yet named the child," he said in surprisingly good English, his deep voice filling the space between them. Sarah blinked in surprise, both at hearing him speak her language and at being addressed directly for the first time. "No," she admitted. "My husband and I, we never decided." "And now," Running Wolf nodded, understanding her unspoken grief. "Among our people, a child is not named immediately. We wait, watching to see what spirit lives within them." He studied the baby's face. "But a child must have a name to be recognized by the ancestors. What would you suggest?" Sarah asked hesitantly. A flicker of surprise crossed the chief's face, quickly controlled. He hadn't expected her to seek his counsel. After a moment's consideration, he said, "He was born in the sacred valley during the moon of long nights. He survived the blizzard before taking his first breath." His eyes met hers. "He is a survivor. Perhaps endures the storm would be fitting." Sarah tested the name silently, watching her son's peaceful face. It felt right, honoring both his difficult entry into the world and the culture of the people who had helped bring him safely through it. "Oj endures the storm," she repeated aloud. "Yes, but he'll need a white name too, for when we—" She trailed off, the reality of their eventual departure from the valley suddenly heavy between them. "For when you return to your people," Running Wolf finished for her, no judgment in his tone. "What name would honor his father?" "William," Sarah said after a moment's thought. "James's father was William." "He was a good man," Running Wolf nodded once. "Then he shall be William to your people and endures the storm to ours. 2 names for 2 worlds." He reached out, his hand hovering over the baby's head in what appeared to be a blessing. "May he have the wisdom to walk in both with honor." With that, the chief turned and left the lodge, leaving Sarah to contemplate the unexpected gift he had given her, acknowledgement that her son belonged, in some small way, to both worlds. Standing Bear came later that evening, settling across the fire from where Sarah sat nursing the newly named William. A comfortable silence had developed between them over the weeks of her stay, a quiet understanding that needed few words. "My father told me of the naming," he said finally, watching the flames rather than her. "It is a great honor. He has accepted your son into our tribe in his way." Sarah shifted the baby to her shoulder, gently patting his back. "I'm grateful for everything." She hesitated, then asked the question that had been on her mind. "And when the weather breaks, when spring truly comes, we'll have to leave, won't we?" Standing Bear's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. "Yes, that was the agreement. When you and the child are strong enough to travel, I will take you to Fort Sullivan. And if I don't want to go—" The words slipped out before Sarah could stop them, surprising even herself. Now Standing Bear did look at her, his gaze sharp and assessing. "What would you have instead? To stay here, among people who still see you as an outsider, who tolerate you now because of the child, but who remember generations of bloodshed whenever they look upon your face?" His words stung with their truth. "Not all of them see me that way," she said quietly. "Some have been kind, accepting. Some," he acknowledged, "not all. And kindness in the moment is not the same as acceptance forever." His voice softened slightly. "What future would you build here, Sarah Winters? A white woman alone among Apache with a mixed blood child? The army would eventually come looking for you. They always do. And when they found you..." He didn't need to finish. They both knew what would happen if soldiers discovered her living willingly among the Apache. At best, they would rescue her forcibly. At worst, they would use her presence as an excuse for violence against the tribe. "I have nowhere else to go," Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "No family back east who would welcome a widow with a half-Apache child. No home to return to." Standing Bear was silent for a long moment, the firelight playing across his strong features. "There are settlements," he said finally. "Places where people of mixed blood live together, not on reservations, not in white towns, somewhere between." Hope flickered in Sarah's chest. "Have you been to such places?" "Once, when I scouted for the army." His expression darkened at the memory. "It was not an easy life, but they survived. They built something of their own." Sarah looked down at William, now sleeping peacefully against her shoulder. Was that what she wanted for him? A life on the margins of both societies. But what was the alternative? Return to the white world, where he would never be fully accepted, or stay in the Apache world, where she would always be an outsider? "I don't have to decide tonight," she said finally, more to herself than to Standing Bear. "No," he agreed. "Not tonight." The conversation shifted then to more immediate concerns, the tribe's food stores, which were beginning to run low after the long winter, the spring hunting parties that would soon set out, the ceremonies that would mark the changing of seasons. Sarah listened, asking occasional questions, slowly building her understanding of this world she had stumbled into. Standing Bear was a patient teacher, explaining concepts and traditions without condescension. In turn, she shared stories of her life before, her childhood in Ohio, her marriage to James, their decision to seek a new start in the West. It was the most they had spoken, and something shifted between them, a deepening of trust. As the fire burned low, Standing Bear rose to leave. But at the lodge entrance, he paused, turning back to her with an uncharacteristic hesitation. "Tomorrow," he said, "if you are strong enough, I will show you something few white eyes have seen." Curiosity sparked in Sarah. "What is it?" But Standing Bear only shook his head, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "You must see for yourself." With that, he ducked through the entrance and was gone. Sarah settled back on her furs, adjusting William more comfortably against her chest. Outside, the night was alive with sounds, the soft murmur of conversations from nearby lodges, the occasional laugh, the howl of a distant coyote. Sounds that had once seemed alien, even threatening, now formed a familiar backdrop to her days and nights. Morning Dove returned, checking on mother and child before preparing her own bed for the night. The old woman had become something of a grandmother figure to William, watching over him with fierce protectiveness when Sarah needed rest. Standing Bear, good man, Morning Dove said unexpectedly as she banked the fire for the night. Heart strong, like mountain. Sarah nodded, surprised by the old woman's comment. Yes, she agreed softly. Like a mountain. She fell asleep with that image in her mind, Standing Bear as a mountain, solid and unchanging in a world where everything else seemed uncertain. And for the first time since James's death, Sarah felt something beyond grief and fear stirring in her heart, something she wasn't yet ready to name, but which brought its own kind of warmth as she drifted into dreams. Dawn arrived with a clarity that only the high desert knows, the air crystalline, the sky a perfect arch of deepening blue. Sarah dressed William warmly, wrapping him in the woven blanket she had received as a gift, and secured him to her back in the Apache fashion that Morning Dove had taught her. The old woman watched with approving eyes, adjusting the final knot to ensure the baby was safely positioned. Going? Morning Dove asked, her limited English still surprising Sarah when she chose to use it. Standing Bear is taking us somewhere, Sarah explained, checking that William was comfortable. The baby had been unusually quiet that morning, his dark eyes, James's eyes, taking in the world with solemn curiosity. Morning Dove nodded, a knowing expression crossing her weathered face. She patted Sarah's arm, then made a sweeping gesture toward the mountains that rose beyond the valley. Sacred, listen. Before Sarah could ask what she meant, the lodge flap opened and Standing Bear entered. He wore a ceremonial buckskin shirt adorned with intricate beadwork, his hair plaited with a single eagle feather. Whatever he planned to show her, it was clearly significant. "You are ready?" he asked, his eyes taking in her and William. Sarah nodded, suddenly nervous. "Is it far? I'm not sure how strong I am yet." "Not far," he assured her, "but the path is steep in places. I will help you." They set out through the camp, drawing curious glances from those already engaged in morning activities. Some nodded respectfully to Standing Bear, others watched Sarah with expressions ranging from curiosity to lingering suspicion. Swift Fox, the boy who had visited that first day, ran up to walk beside them for a few paces, chattering excitedly in Apache until Standing Bear shooed him away with a gentle word. "He wants to know if the baby's eyes will stay blue or turn brown," Standing Bear translated, a rare smile lightening his features. "Many of our children are born with light eyes that darken with time." Sarah glanced over her shoulder at William, whose eyes were indeed still the deep blue he had been born with. "James had blue eyes," she said softly. "Maybe William will keep his." Standing Bear nodded, saying nothing more as they left the perimeter of the camp and began ascending a narrow trail that wound up the eastern slope of the valley. The path was indeed steep in places, and Sarah found herself grateful for Standing Bear's steadying hand at her elbow when her strength faltered. But the exertion felt good after weeks of relative confinement, her body gradually remembering its capabilities. They climbed in companionable silence for nearly an hour before the path leveled out onto a small plateau halfway up the mountainside. Standing Bear paused, allowing Sarah to catch her breath while he surveyed the view with evident satisfaction. "Look," he said simply, gesturing toward the valley below. Sarah turned and gasped softly. From this height, the entire Apache encampment was visible. The circle of lodges, the smoke rising from morning fires, the corral where horses moved like living shadows, the frozen stream that cut through the center of the valley like a silver ribbon. Beyond, the mountains rose on all sides, creating a natural fortress of stone and sky. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "Yes," Standing Bear agreed. "This valley has sheltered my people through hundreds of winters. The spirits of our ancestors watch over us here." He pointed to a cluster of stone formations near the valley's northern edge. "There lie the sacred burial grounds, where generations of Apache returned to the earth." Sarah understood now why bringing her, an outsider, into this place had caused such consternation. This wasn't merely a winter camp, it was the heart of their spiritual world. "Why show me this?" she asked quietly. Standing Bear was silent for a moment, his gaze still on the valley below. "So you understand?" he said finally. "And so you know what we protect," he turned to her then, his dark eyes intense. "And so you see what you and your son are now part of, however briefly." The significance of his words settled over Sarah like a mantle. He was showing her that she had been given not just shelter, but access to something sacred, a trust she had not fully comprehended until now. "I'm honored," she said, meaning it deeply. Standing Bear nodded once, then gestured for her to follow him further along the plateau. They came to a small clearing where a circle of stones surrounded what appeared to be an ancient fire pit. Nearby, primitive paintings adorned a smooth rock face. Handprints, animal figures, symbols Sarah couldn't interpret. "The Vision Place," Standing Bear explained, his voice dropping to a respectful murmur. "Where young men come to seek guidance before becoming warriors, where chiefs commune with the spirits before important decisions." He looked at her directly. "No white person has ever stood here before." Sarah felt the weight of the moment, understanding that she was being shown something precious beyond measure. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the soft mountain breeze. Standing Bear looked away toward the distant horizon where the land stretched endlessly beneath the vast sky. "Because the spirits led me to you in the snow," he said simply. "Because your son was born in our sacred valley, because—" He paused, seemingly searching for words. "Because I believed you would understand the honor, not see only things to be taken or destroyed." The truth of his assessment touched Sarah deeply. She had seen too many of her own people view Indian ways with contempt or greedy fascination, collecting artifacts as curiosities without respect for their meaning. "Thank you for trusting me," she said, instinctively reaching out to touch his arm. Standing Bear looked down at her hand on his buckskin sleeve, then slowly placed his own hand over hers. The contact was brief but electric, sending a warmth through Sarah that had nothing to do with the morning sun, now fully illuminating the plateau. William chose that moment to stir against her back, making small sounds of wakefulness. Standing Bear stepped away, the moment broken, but something had changed between them, a boundary crossed, a connection acknowledged. "We should return," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "You need rest, and the child will be hungry soon." Sarah nodded, adjusting William's position slightly. As they began the descent back to the valley, she felt as though she was returning not as quite the same person who had climbed up. Something fundamental had shifted in her understanding of this place, of these people, and of the man walking silently beside her, who had risked much more than she had initially realized to save her life. The first signs of spring arrived with subtle persistence, patches of bare ground appearing beneath the melting snow, the tentative green of new growth peeking through the thawing earth, birds returning to nest in the valley's sheltering trees. With the changing season came a palpable shift in the camp's atmosphere. Hunting parties ventured further afield, returning with fresh game. Women gathered to repair lodges damaged by winter winds. Children played outside for longer stretches, their laughter carrying on the warming air. For Sarah, these changes brought a growing awareness that her time in the sacred valley was coming to an end. Standing Bear had made no further mention of their departure, but she could feel it approaching like a storm on the horizon. Inevitable, transformative. William flourished under the care of not just Sarah, but the network of women who had taken them both under their protection. At 2 months old, he had grown plump and strong, his expressions increasingly alert and responsive. Morning Dove declared him the healthiest child she had seen in many seasons, a pronouncement that filled Sarah with both pride and a deeper sense of gratitude for these people who had become, against all odds, a kind of family. Even Chief Running Wolf had developed a surprising affection for the infant. Sarah often found him watching William with a softness in his eyes that contradicted his stern demeanor. Once, when she was grinding corn outside the lodge, the chief had approached silently and stood observing William, who lay on a blanket nearby, waving his tiny fists at the sky. "He has the spirit of a warrior," Running Wolf had said, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly when William grabbed his extended finger with surprising strength. Strong, like his mother. The comment had warmed Sarah more than she expected. Coming from the chief, it felt like the highest compliment, but not everyone's attitude had softened. Broken Knife, the warrior who had lost his brother to white settlers, maintained a cold hostility that occasionally flared into open resentment. Sarah had learned to avoid him, keeping William close whenever the man was nearby. She had also become aware of tensions within the tribe itself, whispered arguments about how long she should be allowed to stay, concerns about soldiers searching for her once the mountain passes cleared of snow. Standing Bear bore the brunt of these tensions, defending his decision to bring her to the valley with unwavering conviction. Sarah overheard him once, arguing with another warrior outside the lodge. "She has earned her place," Standing Bear had insisted, his voice low but forceful. "Her son is one of us now. The child, perhaps," the other had conceded, "but she will bring only trouble. The whites will not let her go so easily, and when they come looking, I will deal with it," Standing Bear had interrupted, "as I always have." The conversation had ended there, but its implications lingered in Sarah's mind. What trouble might her presence eventually bring to these people who had saved her life? The question haunted her, mingling with her growing reluctance to leave. One unusually warm afternoon, Sarah sat with Singing Brook by the stream, which now ran freely beneath the remaining ice. The young Apache mother was teaching her to sew tiny beads onto a small pair of moccasins for William, their fingers working in tandem as the women conversed in a mixture of English and Apache. "Standing Bear watches you," Singing Brook said suddenly, her eyes flicking meaningfully toward the far side of the stream. Sarah looked up to see him indeed watching from a distance, his tall figure outlined against the blue sky. He turned away when their eyes met, continuing on his path toward the horse corral. "He has been kind to me," Sarah said carefully, returning her attention to the beadwork. Singing Brook made a soft sound, half laugh, half sigh. "Not kindness," she said, her limited English still sufficient to convey her meaning. "More." Before Sarah could respond, a commotion erupted from the camp's perimeter, shouts of alarm, the rapid pounding of hooves. Both women rose instantly, Singing Brook gathering her baby, Sarah scanning the area for William, who was being watched by Mourning Dove near the chief's lodge. Standing Bear was already running toward the source of the disturbance, along with several other warriors. Sarah hesitated only briefly before following, her heart pounding with sudden fear. She arrived at the edge of the camp to find a small group of Apache riders who had clearly pushed their horses hard, the animals lathered with sweat despite the cool air. One of the men was speaking rapidly to Standing Bear and the other warriors, his expressions and gestures conveying urgency, even though Sarah couldn't understand his words. "Ook, what's happening?" she asked Greyhawk, who stood nearby. The elder gave her a sharp look, then seemed to decide she deserved an answer. "Soldiers," he said, the word containing all the bitterness of generations. "At the trading post, asking questions." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "About me?" Greyhawk's silence was answer enough. Standing Bear broke away from the group, his expression grim as he approached Sarah. "You should return to the lodge," he said quietly. "This does not concern you, doesn't it?" Sarah challenged, keeping her voice low. "If they're looking for me, they ask about a white woman and child," Standing Bear confirmed, his jaw tight. "A woman reported missing by her brother-in-law after bandits attacked their wagon train." Sarah frowned in confusion. "Brother-in-law? I don't..." James didn't have a brother. Standing Bear's eyes narrowed. Are you certain? Yes, Sarah insisted. He was an only child. His parents died years ago. There's no one who would be looking for me, especially not a brother-in-law. A murmur had risen among the gathered Apache, and Sarah could feel the weight of suspicious glances. She understood their fear. Soldiers asking questions never boded well for the tribe, regardless of the reason. Standing Bear studied her face for a long moment, then seemed to come to a decision. Stay close to the lodge, he said firmly. I will speak with the council. As he walked away, Sarah felt a cold dread settling in her stomach. Someone was looking for her, someone claiming to be family, but who could not be, and whatever their motives, they had brought the threat of soldiers to the doorstep of the people who had sheltered her. The fragile peace she had found in the sacred valley suddenly seemed as temporary as the morning frost, already melting under the harsh light of a new danger. Night fell over the Apache camp like a heavy blanket, smothering the usual evening activities beneath a tense silence. No drums beat, no stories were told around the fires, children were hushed and kept close, the entire tribe seeming to hold its breath in anticipation of what morning might bring. In the chief's lodge, an emergency council had convened. Sarah sat at its edge, William sleeping soundly in her arms as the tribe's leaders debated in increasingly heated tones. Standing Bear had insisted on her presence, despite objections from several elders who thought she should be excluded from their deliberations. She has the right to hear what concerns her fate, he had argued, and Running Wolf had eventually nodded his assent. Now, as the discussion continued in Apache too rapid for her limited understanding, Sarah watched the faces of these men who held her future in their hands. Broken Knife gestured emphatically, his expression hard as stone. Grey Hawk spoke more calmly, but with obvious concern. Stone Calf sat in contemplative silence, his ancient eyes occasionally turning to study Sarah with unfathomable depth. Finally, Standing Bear turned to her, his face grave in the firelight. The scouts have learned more, he said, switching to English. The man searching for you calls himself Edward Winters. He claims to be your husband's brother, come to rescue his brother's widow and child from Apache captivity. Sarah shook her head firmly. James had no brother named Edward. No brother at all. She hesitated, then added, but I knew an Edward once, Edward Blackwood. He worked with James briefly in Ohio before we came west. A chill ran through her as memory surfaced. James discharged him for dishonesty. He was not a good man. Standing Bear translated this for the council, and a murmur of concern rippled through the lodge. Why would this man claim kinship with you? Running Wolf asked directly, his piercing gaze fixed on Sarah. Sarah clutched William closer, the truth dawning on her with sickening clarity. Our wagon. It carried everything we owned, including the deed to land James had purchased near Fort Sullivan. She swallowed hard. Valuable land with water rights. When the bandits attacked, they took everything. If Edward was among them, he could claim the land as your husband's brother. Standing Bear finished for her, understanding immediately. If you and the child were dead, or believed captured by Apache, Sarah whispered, no one would look too hard for us then. The implications weren't lost on the council. Running Wolf spoke rapidly in Apache, his expression darkening with each word. The other men responded with varying degrees of anger and concern. What are they saying? Sarah asked, Standing Bear quietly. They fear this man will lead soldiers to our sacred valley, he replied, his voice low, that he will claim we raided the wagon train and took you captive. The army would believe such a story without question, but that's not what happened. Truth matters little when white men seek reasons to attack Apache. Standing Bear said bitterly. They need only the rumor of a white woman held captive to justify violence. Sarah looked around at the council, at these proud men whose people had already lost so much to white encroachment. She thought of the women who had taught her their ways, the children who played with such carefree joy in this protected valley. The idea that her presence might bring destruction to them was unbearable. "I'll go," she said suddenly, her voice carrying through the lodge. "I'll leave now, tonight. If I'm gone, they'll have no reason to come here." Standing Bear's head snapped toward her, his eyes flashing. "No, it's the only way," Sarah insisted. "I can take William and do what?" Standing Bear challenged. "Walk into the mountains alone with an infant. Or perhaps surrender yourself to this man who arranged your husband's murder and now seeks to claim you are dead." Put that way, the impossibility of her suggestion was clear. Sarah fell silent, despair threatening to overwhelm her. Running Wolf spoke then, his words measured and deliberate. Standing Bear listened, then turned to Sarah with a look of surprise. "My father suggests a different path," he said. "He proposes that I take you and the child to Fort Sullivan tomorrow, not to surrender you, but to speak with the fort commander directly. To explain that you have been under our protection, not our captivity, and to expose this Edward Blackwood as a fraud and likely murderer." Sarah stared at the chief in astonishment. It was a bold plan, fraught with risk for Standing Bear especially. "They might not believe you," she said. "They might arrest you just for appearing at the fort. I have dealt with the whites at Fort Sullivan before," Standing Bear replied, "in my years as a scout. Some there know me, know I am not a man of lies." He glanced at his father. "It is a risk, but one with purpose." The debate continued around them, some councilmen arguing fiercely against the plan, others reluctantly agreeing it might be their best hope to avoid bloodshed. Throughout it all, Sarah felt Standing Bear's presence beside her like an anchor in a storm, solid, unwavering, determined. When at last the council disbanded, with the decision made to attempt Running Wolf's plan at first light, Sarah found herself alone with Standing Bear outside the lodge. The night was cold and clear, stars scattered like ice crystals across the black sky. "Why?" she asked simply, looking up at him. "Why risk yourself for me this way?" Standing Bear was silent for a long moment, his gaze on the distant mountains. "And when I found you in the snow," he said finally, "I thought I was saving 2 lives." His eyes met hers, dark and intense in the starlight. "I did not know I was saving my own as well." The meaning behind his words hung in the air between them, unspoken but unmistakable. Sarah felt her heart swell with emotions she had kept carefully contained since James's death. Hope, longing, the possibility of a future she had never imagined. "Standing Bear," she whispered, but whatever she might have said next was interrupted by a sharp call from the camp's perimeter. A sentry's warning cry, followed by the sounds of urgent movement. Standing Bear's expression shifted instantly from tenderness to alert vigilance. "Stay here," he commanded, already moving toward the commotion. But Sarah knew, with cold certainty, that the decision had been taken out of their hands. The danger she had brought to the sacred valley had arrived, and with it, the moment of reckoning for them all. The soldiers arrived in the grey half-light of dawn, a dozen men on horseback, rifles gleaming dully in the early light. At their head rode a lieutenant Sarah didn't recognize, young and stiff-backed with the confidence of unquestioned authority. Beside him, on a handsome bay gelding that Sarah recognized with a jolt as James's horse, sat a man with a neat beard and expensive clothes, Edward Blackwood, no longer the rough worker she remembered from Ohio, but transformed into a gentleman of means. The Apache had prepared for this moment through the night. Women and children had been sent to caves higher in the valley, along with the tribe's sacred objects. Warriors positioned themselves strategically throughout the camp, armed but not overtly threatening. Only Running Wolf, Standing Bear, and a few elders remained visible, standing in a dignified line as the soldiers approached. Sarah stood slightly behind them. William held tightly in her arms. She had insisted on being present over Standing Bear's objections. "He needs to see me alive," she had argued. "Men know that I recognize him." Now, as Blackwood's eyes scanned the camp and landed on her, Sarah saw the flash of shock and dismay, quickly masked by a performance of relieved joy. "Sarah!" he called, spurring his horse forward before the lieutenant could stop him. "Thank God you're alive. We've been searching for months." "That's far enough," Standing Bear said in clear English, stepping forward with a raised hand. His other hand rested casually near his knife, a detail not lost on the soldiers, who tensed visibly. The lieutenant raised his own hand, halting his men. "I am Lieutenant Taylor of Fort Sullivan," he announced formally. "We're here for Mrs. Sarah Winters and her child, reported captive by your people." "There are no captives here," Running Wolf replied with dignity. "Only guests under our protection." Blackwood's face darkened. "Protection? You stole her from our wagon train, killed her husband, my brother." "You are no brother of James Winters," Sarah said, stepping forward with William held securely against her chest. Her voice carried clearly in the still morning air. "My husband had no siblings, but he did have a dishonest employee he once fired for theft, Edward Blackwood." Confusion crossed the lieutenant's young face. "Ma'am, are you saying this man is not your brother-in-law?" "I'm saying he's a liar and likely a murderer," Sarah replied steadily. "Our wagon was attacked by bandits. James was shot when he returned and found them looting our possessions, including the deed to valuable land near Fort Sullivan." She fixed Blackwood with a cold stare. "Land that Edward here apparently now claims as my husband's brother." Blackwood's face contorted with fury. She's confused. Been too long with these savages. They've turned her mind," he appealed to the lieutenant. "Look at her, living among them, letting them handle her child. Who knows what they've done to her?" Lieutenant Taylor studied Sarah uncertainly. "Mrs. Winters, have you been held here against your will?" "No," Sarah said firmly. "I was caught in a blizzard after escaping the bandits. Standing Bear found me half frozen and brought me here. He and his people saved my life and my son's." She stepped closer to the soldiers, letting them see William's healthy face. "They helped me deliver my child when my time came early. They've protected us, fed us, treated us with nothing but respect." The lieutenant looked genuinely perplexed, his gaze moving between Sarah, the Apache leaders, and the increasingly agitated Blackwood. "She's lying," Blackwood snarled. "These devils have her under their spell." "I think not," came a new voice, startling everyone. From between two lodges emerged Mourning Dove, who had evidently refused to retreat to the caves with the other women. In her gnarled hands, she carried a leather satchel that Sarah recognized with a gasp. "My bag," she breathed. "You from the wagon?" Mourning Dove approached slowly, her age-stooped figure nevertheless radiating dignity. She held out the satchel to Lieutenant Taylor, speaking in Apache. Standing Bear translated. "She says this was found on the trail near where our hunters discovered a burned wagon 2 moons ago. They brought it back, not knowing its importance until the white woman arrived in our camp." The lieutenant took the satchel cautiously. Sarah stepped forward. "Inside is my Bible, with my family record. It will show that James was an only child." Her eyes hardened as she looked at Blackwood. "And there should be a letter from the land office, confirming our purchase. A letter addressed only to James Winters. The lieutenant opened the satchel and found the Bible. As Sarah had said, the family record clearly showed James as the only child of William and Mary Winters. The land document was there too, exactly as she had described. Blackwood's face had gone pale. He suddenly yanked his horse around, preparing to flee, but found his path blocked by Apache warriors who had silently materialized from between the lodges. "In Deadwood, Blackwood," Lieutenant Taylor said, his voice now hard with certainty, "you're under arrest for fraud and suspected murder of James Winters." Two soldiers dismounted and seized Blackwood, who struggled and cursed as they bound his hands. "You can't believe these savages over me," he shouted desperately. "She's been corrupted by them. Look at her, living with an Apache buck, bearing his bastard for all we know." "That's enough," the lieutenant snapped. But the damage was done. Sarah felt heat rise to her face as the soldiers' eyes moved between her and Standing Bear, speculation and judgment clear in their expressions. Even Lieutenant Taylor, who had believed her about Blackwood, now regarded her with subtle distaste. Standing Bear stepped forward, his face impassive, but his eyes burning. "The child was born of her husband before his death," he said with quiet intensity. "We of the Apache do not lie about such things, even when the white man's world might wish us to." A tense silence followed, broken finally by Lieutenant Taylor. "Mrs. Winters, we'll escort you and your son back to the fort. You'll need to give a formal statement about what happened to your husband." Before Sarah could respond, Running Wolf spoke. "The woman and child are under our protection until they choose to leave," he said firmly. "They are not prisoners to be taken." The lieutenant's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm, and several soldiers raised their rifles slightly. The Apache warriors tensed in response, hands moving to weapons. "Wait," Sarah said quickly, stepping between the two groups. "There's no need for violence." She turned to Lieutenant Taylor. "I will come to the fort willingly to give my statement about James's death, but not as a rescue." She drew herself up to her full height. "I will come as a free woman who has been a guest of the Apache, not their captive. And I will return here afterward, if Chief Running Wolf permits it." Surprise registered on every face, Apache and white alike. Standing Bear looked at her with an expression of such profound emotion that Sarah felt it like a physical touch. Lieutenant Taylor frowned. "Return, Mrs. Winters. Surely you don't mean to continue living among these people, Sarah said evenly, "have shown me more kindness and honor than I've known from most who share my skin color. My son was born in their sacred valley. He carries both a white name and an Apache name. William endures the storm." She moved to stand beside Standing Bear, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "And I have found something here I never expected to find again after James's death. A home." The implications of her words hung in the air. Lieutenant Taylor looked genuinely at a loss. This was clearly not the rescue mission he had anticipated. Running Wolf broke the silence, addressing his son in Apache. Standing Bear listened, then nodded once before turning to Sarah. "My father suggests a compromise," he said quietly. "That I accompany you to the fort to give your statement. That we expose this man's crimes together," his eyes held hers, "and that afterward we decide our path forward, not as Apache and white, but as two people who have walked through fire and snow together." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes at the significance of what he was offering, not just protection, but a future, whatever form it might take. "I would welcome your company," she said softly. Lieutenant Taylor cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable, but recognizing the need for diplomacy. "That would be acceptable. We'll expect you both at the fort by midday tomorrow." He paused, then added stiffly, "And I give you my word as an officer that you'll be treated with respect, both of you." With that, the soldiers turned their horses, taking the still protesting Blackwood with them. As they disappeared down the valley path, the tension in the camp gradually dissolved, replaced by a buzzing excitement as those who had hidden in the caves began to return. Sarah found herself surrounded by the women who had become her friends, singing Brooke with her shy smile, other mothers who had taught her their ways, even Mourning Dove, who patted her arm with surprising tenderness. They spoke rapidly in Apache, and though Sarah couldn't understand every word, their meaning was clear: approval, acceptance, belonging. Later, as the sun set on what had begun as a day of potential tragedy, Sarah sat with Standing Bear on a rock outcropping overlooking the valley. William slept peacefully in a cradle board that Singing Brook had insisted on making for him, decorated with protective symbols and tiny bells that tinkled softly in the evening breeze. "What happens now?" Sarah asked, watching the shadows lengthen across the sacred land that had become her refuge. Standing Bear was quiet for a moment, his profile strong against the darkening sky. "Oh, there is a place," he said finally, "at the edge of Apache territory, near the western border of what the whites call New Mexico territory. A settlement where people of mixed blood live, Apache, Mexican, white. They have built something between worlds." He turned to look at her. "I have friends there, people who would welcome a woman of courage, a child of two worlds, and, Sarah prompted when he hesitated. "And a warrior who has grown tired of standing between worlds alone," he finished quietly. Sarah's heart swelled with unexpected joy. "Is that what you want? To leave your people?" "My people will always be in my heart," Standing Bear said, gesturing toward the valley. "But the old ways are changing, whether we wish it or not. The reservations come closer each season. The hunting grounds shrink." His hand found hers in the gathering darkness. "Perhaps it is time to build something new, rather than only fighting to preserve what is passing." Sarah twined her fingers with his. This man who had saved her from the storm, and then, slowly, deliberately, saved her heart as well. "William will need a father," she said softly, "a man of honor to teach him how to walk in both worlds." Standing Bear's hand tightened on hers. "And you, Sarah Winters, what will you need?" Sarah leaned against his shoulder, feeling the solid strength of him, the steadiness that had been her anchor through the darkest days. "I will need exactly what I have found," she whispered. "A man who sees me as I am, who stands firm when the storm comes, who carries me when I cannot walk, but lets me find my own path when I can." Standing Bear turned to her then, raising his free hand to gently touch her cheek. In his eyes, Sarah saw a future she had never imagined. Difficult perhaps, unconventional certainly, but filled with the kind of deep understanding that transcended the boundaries others had drawn between their worlds. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Standing Bear bent his head and touched his lips to hers, a kiss as gentle as snowfall, as profound as the ancient mountains that sheltered them. Sarah returned the kiss without hesitation, sealing a promise that needed no words. Below them, in the sacred valley where no outsider had tread before Sarah, the Apache people went about their evening rituals. Children laughed, elders told stories, fires glowed against the gathering night. And in that moment, it seemed to Sarah that the divide between her old world and this new one was not so vast after all. That perhaps, with courage and understanding, bridges could be built across even the deepest chasms of mistrust and history. William stirred in his cradleboard, making the soft sounds that preceded waking. Sarah and Standing Bear moved as one to attend to him, their hands meeting over their son, for that was how Standing Bear thought of him now. Sarah knew. "Endures the storm," Standing Bear murmured, touching the boy's dark hair with gentle fingers. A good name for the journey ahead. Sarah smiled, leaning into the circle of his arm as they gazed down at the child who represented everything they had found and everything they hoped to build. "But yes," she agreed softly, "a perfect name for all of us." And as night fully claimed the sacred valley, three figures, a family unlike any that had come before, made their way back to the camp, carrying with them the first fragile light of a new dawn between two worlds.